You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
Welcome into this week's edition of the Show Before the Show, the official podcast of minor league baseball. I am Sam Dykstra. If you listened to last week's episode, this is officially my rebuttal to my colleagues Tyler Mon and Benjamin Hill after they said some libelous things about my time in Florida. No, just kidding. It was a great episode. I definitely encourage everybody to go back and listen if you haven't already. It was about minor league ballpark renovations. It's starting our theme. We're going to be doing a themed episode the first week of every month moving forward. So for March, we did minor league ballpark renovations. Ben and Tyler put together a great series of interviews about some changes that are coming to stadiums for the 2023 season. There are a lot of them across the minor league landscape. Go back and listen to that. I was in spring training in Florida. I'll get to that in a little bit here. But you're hearing me right now instead of Tyler, who normally introduces the show, because Tyler, as you may know, is in Taiwan right now, calling the World Baseball Classic Pool A. So he's called games involving the Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, all the teams in that pool. Benjamin Hill is off this week, though you will hear from him here shortly. But just want to introduce the show since we're all over the world right now. It's kind of crazy how things are working. We have a fun series of interviews for you this week. Hopefully we'll get back to a little bit closer to normal as the minor league season gets closer and closer. We're looking at AAA opening day coming at the end of this month, which again is still so crazy to say. But before we get into everything else, the fact that we have one of the play-by-play voices of the World Baseball Classic, I've said this on Twitter a bunch, and I've said this to Tyler himself, and I'm not saying it to him now because, again, we're all across the world, but could not be more proud of that guy for what he's doing in the World Baseball Classic. If any of you know Tyler, and if you've been listening to the show for as many years as we've been putting out podcasts, you do know him by this point. He's been working super hard to get this type of opportunity as somebody who loves the World Baseball Classic more than anybody I know personally. It's been really fun to see him work through the international circuit, work WC qualifiers, and then to get this opportunity in Taiwan and call a heck of a game. I mean, you listen to some of these broadcasts, they're exciting, they're fun to listen to, they're fun to watch. That's all due credit to Tyler being the play-by-play voice, the very first one we heard in the World Baseball Classic because he had the first game. So could not be more proud of that guy. Super pumped he's still here with us on this show, but obviously big things ahead for Tyler. Let's throw it to our first interview of the week. Ben talked to James Bailey, an author of the book Major League Debuts 2023, which incorporates some detailed bios and full career stats for all 303 players who debuted in the major leagues last season. You might think like, oh, we probably know a lot about those guys. They were minor leaguers first. They were prospects. Some of these guys aren't very big names. They may have come up for just a cup of coffee, and there's some fun stories behind them. So here's Ben talking to James Bailey.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
Here on the Show Before the Show podcast, I am joined by James Bailey, author of Major League Debuts 2023 edition. James, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
I said us, but it's really just me, Ben Hill. Co-hosts Tyler Mon and Sam Dykstra are elsewhere right now, but you'll be hearing from them, elsewhere in the podcast, of course. So a lot to get into here. Major League Debuts 2023 edition. The title is self-explanatory, but we'll get into a lot of things here. But let's just start with, what is this book and, what compelled you to put it together?
This book is it's 303 stories basically. Every player that came up last year, from the Julio Rodriguez to the Fernando Cruz, some of the guys that didn't have hot prospect background, or at least not recently. Some of them were hot prospects a long time ago. You got your Mark Appels in there. But we've got a recap of what they did in their first game. We've got their background, where they came from, what happened to them last year, before they came up, when they were up, or in some cases after they went back down, and then a little bit of what can we expect from them in the future. And how it came about was, I don't know, I kind of thought about the kind of book I might like to read, and just started playing around with some ideas, and it kept on going.
Yeah, and you're qualified to put together a book like this. If you could talk about your background a little bit. I know quite a number of years ago, back in the day, you worked for the Durham Bulls, and then a little more recently, but Baseball America. Obviously, baseball has been a big part of your life. Yeah, just fill us in on all that.
Well, I started with the Bulls back when I was in college, and that was 1990. I worked there for 3 seasons, and there was some overlap there between working at Baseball America, because back at that time they were both owned by Miles Wolff, so there was a lot of overlap between the two entities. On game day, you would see a lot of people working at the Bulls games who during the day we're working at Baseball America and make a few extra bucks. But so I had a bit of crossover there, and I started at Baseball America as an intern when I was in school, and I kept on when I finished. And I left for a little bit and came back, and after I left there, I moved up to New York, and I stayed in touch. I'd done some work for them over the years, wrote a bunch of book reviews, and I did some top prospect lists for them. Now it's been a few years, but I did the Marlins back when we had guys like Christian Yelich and JT Realmuto coming through. And I've always been, ever since I was a little kid growing up in Seattle and rooting for the very bad Mariners, I've been hooked on baseball. So, and then as far as books go, you were kind enough, it's over 10 years ago now, to review on the site there the Greatest Show on Dirt, which was a book that was set in the old Durham Athletic Park. So I won't quiz you on it, because it's possible you've forgotten some of the details by now.
I will admit I've forgotten some of the details, but I remember reading that, enjoying it, writing about that about 10 or 11 years ago. And then since then you've you've written what, 4 other novels, and gone in all sorts of different directions with your writing.
Yeah, there was one other baseball novel, which I kind of like better than The Greatest Show on Dirt, but The Greatest Show on Dirt has definitely sold more copies. I think the Durham Bulls hook there. The other one was called $9 a Pound, and it was about a player who he got a little advantage by using some illegal methods as far as the performance enhancing drugs go. But I thought that was a nice story. Then there was another. Well, the other ones aren't about baseball, so people can look those up. We'll leave those ones out for now.
Right, but for the record, we are not only limited to baseball on this podcast. Of course, it's baseball centric. But if you want to mention anything non-baseball related, we will not censor or delete it later. But the new book is, of course, all baseball, wall-to-wall baseball. As you mentioned, 303 players made their major league debuts last season. They're all in this book. It's a lot of work to put together something like this. It's over 400 pages, it's 303 players. I imagine you got the idea or knew you were doing this kind of early in the season so you could work on it incrementally when new guys debuted, or what was your process in putting this together?
I didn't really start on it till the end of towards the end of the season. So it was kind of like I didn't sleep a lot. And I was kind of, I didn't know when I started exactly how many players there would be total. And I was kind of figuring it was going to get up around 300. And I don't know if you remember or paid attention. Like, I was probably the only person really paying attention to stuff this closely. But on the last day of the season, 3 players made their debut. And while I'm happy for them, I was just like, oh man, there's 3 more guys I got to add. But it was interesting to see, how some of the teams use their September call-ups. It's all different nowadays. They can only have 2, but they're required to fill those spots. So even when somebody got hurt, you saw some guys come up for, real short opportunities, but they had to fill somebody. There were a couple of players who had been, gone home after a minor league season and got the out of the blue call to join the team. And I'm sure that kind of makes their off season a lot more exciting, but it's just more guys to write about.
Yeah, obviously you want as many guys as possible to get that major league call up, but yeah, there's 3 at the end of the season. It ruined your round number as well. You would have had 300, the 300 club, but all 303. So this book is, you could read it from page 1 all the way to the end, and get to know all these players. But also functions kind of as a reference book or a research book, where maybe you're watching a game and you say, "Oh, who is this guy?" or something of that nature. A lot of information in these write-ups for each player. What do you see, or who do you see as the book's audience in terms of people that will that it will appeal to most, and how do you see it being utilized?
I think reference books like this will obviously have a fantasy baseball edge. It's not hardcore fantasy, and I didn't really go into a lot of sabermetric kind of stats. There are complete career stats for everybody. And one of the reasons I thought that was important is you can't really find those in books anymore. Like the Bill James Handbook, as much as I love those and buy it every year and, always dive in when that comes. For the guys that come up, they used to include their full minor league stats. Now, except for a handful of top prospects, they'll just usually include the current or the most recent seasons minor leagues. So I thought the context of having all those stats there was a good one. I play Stratomatic Dynasty League baseball, and I've had a lot of guys in my league say that they felt the book was helpful in preparing for their drafts this year and just giving them more background. I think there's a bit of just kind of a general audience in a sense of, you get stuck watching a game, trying to figure out who is this guy. The name sounds familiar, or maybe it comes totally out of left field. And there are a lot of players who come up with, maybe they are kind of coming out of the blue there. They're a relief pitcher. They need, team needed somebody, so if you can just kind of flip through, open it up, like you said, it's organized alphabetically. So you can just kind of, go right to the guy and read about his background, where he came from. But, everybody's got a story, and some of the guys that aren't the hot prospects have really more interesting stories. They didn't give up. Some of these guys were 30 or even older when they came up. There's a couple guys in 32 years old. And when you've been playing that long, you definitely have a lot of twists and turns and interesting things. Independent leagues, guys have played overseas. The number one thing for these guys is they love the game and wouldn't quit, and they finally got their chance. So,
right, and you just hit on a topic I wanted to get into. But 303 major league debuts last season. Each one's a story. In putting this together, were there a couple guys who had things in their background that really surprised you found intriguing, or just the nature in which they received the call up? Through the years, it seems, especially with social media, people are more and more into hearing about how guys got called up, or the circumstances, or where were you when you heard. And, I know the book doesn't necessarily go into all those little details, but there's a lot of, personal history with these guys, and certainly some outliers in terms of maybe not the typical player to debut.
If you want to talk about somebody who, it's like didn't give up. This guy actually did give up, and I thought was an interesting story was Ray Kerr. He's a left-handed pitcher. He came up with the Padres last year, but he was played on a really, we'll call it bad, high school team in
Yeah.
Reno. They were not a powerhouse, and he was not heavily scouted. He played 1 year at junior college, and he just walked away from the game. And he went back home, and he was working in a movie theater. And when he got tired of cleaning up popcorn, he got a new job working at 7-Eleven. And finally, a coach talked him into giving a junior college ball another shot. And then he impressed enough that they found a spot for him up in the Alaska Baseball League, which is the collegiate summer league. And he's competing against, players from big 4-year schools. And one thing he said when someone first suggested he go pitch in Alaska, he thought they were kidding because he didn't realize he even played baseball up there. So he wasn't following it all that close, but he went up there and he did extremely well. He was going to transfer to a 4-year school. And then the Mariners asked him to throw a bullpen for him, and they signed him for $5,000. So not a big bonus baby, but he did well enough. And then he interested the Padres in as a trade, and he eventually made it. So, there's stories like that are just kind of interesting, totally off the beaten path. You have guys, I mentioned Fernando Cruz earlier, who, he was drafted in 2007 as a shortstop, and he finally made it last year as a relief pitcher. And his first position change was actually the Royals tried to put him behind the plate, but that didn't really take, and he still couldn't really hit. And they gave him a short trial as a pitcher and then let him go. And he just wandered and wouldn't quit. And the Reds scouted him in Mexico. They scouted him in Puerto Rico, and they signed him. And he's probably going to make the team out of spring training this year. He came up in September, and he pitched really well. So he was a nice, heartwarming story, but he's also he could be a legitimate contributor for them. So.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, these guys, you can just turn to the index and then find the write-up immediately. And I was kind of following along with you as you talked about them. Right on the back copy too, 303 fascinating tales of perseverance. And I think that, what me and I'm sure a lot of listeners of this podcast like about the minor leagues, of course, there's a lot of attention on the prospects, and rightfully so. But there's so many players who don't get much attention, and a book like this gives people an opportunity to learn about, everybody, year after year. And speaking of year after year, I mean, this is an evergreen concept, and that as long as there's Major League Baseball, there's going to be Major League debuts. Have you thought about, continuing on with this project and doing it for next year as well?
I've already started writing some of the backgrounds for some of the guys who seem like they're obvious candidates. You had 3 guys signed from Japan who I could feel pretty confident they're going to play this year. So I started working on those guys, and there's a few others I've already, taken a bit of time working on Anthony Volpe and Andrew Painter, and now I'm hoping Painter's elbow is going to hold out. So I mean, it'd be great to see him. I'm not sure he's going to make it before he turns 20, because that's going to come pretty early, and I imagine they're going to slow him down a little bit now after the tender elbow reports. But I wanted to get a head start, and there's some things I think the book came out really nice, but there's certain things where I start getting ideas of, maybe I could try this. So yeah, I'm definitely gunning for a 2024 edition.
All right, yeah, an annual tradition with the Major League debuts by James Bailey. So yeah, James, tell people where they can get this book, how to get it, how to check out your other work. Promote to your heart's content.
Promote to my heart's content. All right. Most of the sales right now are on Amazon. It's in print and Kindle format. And the print sells a lot better. And I kind of get that myself. I think it's a great book to flip through. It's nice to be able to, I guess, click through it on a Kindle, but not the same reading experience, but then again, I'm old, so younger people might be more up for the EPUBs. We have ebook in pretty much anywhere you can buy an ebook, and there's also a print version available through barnesandnoble.com. So all your online booksellers.
Nice. And before I let you go, just a more left field question, but you live in Rochester now. Before we started recording this interview, you said you're not a big garbage plate guy, but as someone who lives in Rochester, and a city I enjoy visiting, if you could plug just one thing in Rochester, what it would be, if people are coming to Rochester, where do you direct them for food, drink, fun, whatever?
We usually wind up at Dinosaur Barbecue, and if we have friends coming from out of town and go out for one place, it'd be Dinosaur. I went there with John Manuel, Baseball America, former coworker there. He's now a scout for the Twins. So he was in town last fall, and I'm like, John, I know where we're going for lunch. So yeah, Dinosaur Barbecue, that's usually where we head.
There you go. One in Rochester. Check out Dinosaur Barbecue, which I believe started in Syracuse, and I think there's actually one in Brooklyn where I live. So there's a couple dinosaurs around.
They've got them pretty much all over now. There's I think there might even be one in Buffalo. So
yeah. So instead of going extinct, the dinosaurs are expanding
up and down the thruway. Yeah,
exactly. But anyhow, back to the topic at hand. Major League Debuts, the 2023 edition is out now. Author James Bailey, thanks so much for joining me on the Show Before the Show podcast and talking about the book. And I hope this inspires other people to check it out.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
All right. Thank you to Ben and James for that discussion. Really excited to dive into that. And just, again, like, I work in prospects. I work in minor league baseball. I cover a lot of these guys coming up. But sometimes the guys who come into the major leagues are just there for a very short amount of time, but they still get their names put in to the book as major leaguers. So it's fun to tell those stories. And I'm grateful James put together that book for everybody to enjoy. So go seek it out if you have the opportunity. Before we get into our second interview here, I just wanted to bring some things that I saw in spring training from my time in Florida. I hit up 10 camps in 10 days, all on the Gulf Coast side, going from Lakeland in the north all the way down to Fort Myers. So that's Tigers camp down to Twins and Red Sox territory, hitting up places like Tampa, Dunedin, Bradenton, a lot of these places that we know from the Florida State League. Some things that stood out to me real quick. From Blue Jays camp, I talked to Addison Barger, one of their top prospects coming off a breakout year last year that saw him climb multiple levels, play some time in the Arizona Fall League, get added to the 40-man. You might have read my story, and if you haven't, I encourage you to check it out. He grew up deciding he wanted to hit left-handed because of Ichiro. He's somebody who was born in Washington State, went to high school in Florida, in the Tampa area, but he's a natural right-handed thrower and watched Ichiro and saw his big leg kick and was like, I kind of want to do that. I want to be that type of hitter. So he taught himself how to switch hit, eventually decided he was going to be lefty only. And now he shows really good power. Watching his leg kick in slow motion, it's almost like a karate chop. He really gets it up there. I asked him about it. Why do you do it that violent? And he said, it keeps me in time. It hasn't been an issue so far. We'll see how it works out. But the Blue Jays have certainly been encouraged by his spring training, the way he's hit the ground running there in Major League camp. He might move from the infield to the outfield just to get a look out there. The Blue Jays have a much bigger need on the grass than they do on the dirt, considering he plays shortstop, third base, maybe even a little second base. He has the arm for the outfield. Really interested to see who he can be going into the year. I got a question about him the other day. Could he be a top 100 prospect? And honestly, by the time he proves to us that the leg kick won't hurt his leg tool, or his hit tool rather, he might already be in the majors and on the cusp of graduation. So he could be kind of one of those late breakers. I know he had a breakout season last year, but one of those late break types who proves like he's one of the best prospects in the game by the time he's coming off lists. And that's just the way that goes. Another one that stood out to me, no huge surprise here, but Jackson Holliday of the Baltimore Orioles, the number 1 overall pick last year, was a little bit of a surprise to see him in Major League camp this year, but the O's decided to get aggressive with him. I mean, listen, he's Matt Holliday's son. He's been around Major League clubhouses before. This is not going to be some huge eye-opening experience for him. He knows what they look like. He knows what happens in there. So they threw him into the deep end of the pool, and they've given him some decent chances. It's all been in late game opportunities, coming in as a late game replacement, as a defensive replacement at shortstop, getting some at bats here and there. But watching him at short, I mean, it's been really good. Every time I look up, I'm like, oh, that was a nice play by the guy at short. Oh, that's Jackson Holliday again, the guy who was playing high school ball this time last year. It's been really encouraging. I know my colleagues, Jonathan Mayo and Jim Callis, we all love Jackson Holliday going into the year. He's a top 15 prospect in the game. We have him circled as somebody who, if he hit like he did last year in his brief look at in the minor leagues, could be the number 1 overall prospect by the end of the year. His plate discipline has been elite early on. If he can play a mean shortstop, that's going to be a big thing for the Orioles, because they're about to graduate Gunnar Henderson. They have Joey Ortiz, Jordan Westberg, Connor Norby, Kobe Mayo, all these guys in the upper minors. What is the next wave? Well, it's going to be highlighted by Jackson Holliday. So it was really encouraging to see him do so well on the major league side down there. Anthony Volpe, sticking in the AL East. I'm actually going to stick to the AL East this whole time, but that's just because those were the teams I got to see during my trip, a lot of them anyway. But Anthony Volpe of the New York Yankees system, some creeping suggestions that maybe he's the one to win this shortstop job in the Bronx. We'll see. I mean, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is the veteran option right there. I don't think anybody was really encouraged by what he did in 2022. Oswald Peraza is probably the better defender than Volpe at short, and he got a little bit of major league time at the end of last season, so he's certainly looking major league ready. Would be the more experienced option on opening day. But given what Volpe's done, I mean, he's hit the ball, he's shown power, he's been good defensively too. I mean, Aaron Judge himself talked about this the other day. He's making heads-up plays at shortstop. It's not just, hey, can you get to the ball and cover ground? It's what happens when you get to it. And there's the lead runner going from second to third right in front of you. You're tempted to just throw it across the diamond and get the out. He's throwing it to third, getting the guy caught up in a rundown. It's been really interesting to see Volpe take to that. I talked to him a little bit in Yankees camp, not to write anything, but just speaking to him, seeing how he's doing. He's a friend of the show. He's been on this podcast before. And we talked about his throwing. I mean, that was a big point of emphasis for him going into last season. I was wondering what he was doing to work on that this year. He said he actually spent some time at Yankees camp throughout the offseason and went to the gas station, which is on the minor league side. It's over at their developmental complex up the road in Tampa from George Steinbrenner Field. But the gas station is for pitchers. It is an area where they can see all sorts of metrics on their pitches. They can see their mechanics. Well, Anthony Volpe wants to know what his mechanics are like too. And he talked about getting into kind of a rubber band-esque throwing motion, just so do everything else so the ball just comes out of your hand more naturally. So that could be a big part of his game. If he can just become a shortstop and add on the hit tool, add on the power tool, it's going to be really, really special. I would still bet against him being the opening day starter for New York, but maybe he's even more ahead of the curve. Maybe he's an option by the end of April or early May. If Peraza and Kiner-Falefa still are not getting it done a month or two into the season. And then finally, one of my favorite stories that I did from Florida was with Ceddanne Rafaela, Red Sox prospect, top 100 prospect, one of my favorite defenders in all the minor leagues. He was really good at shortstop, but the Red Sox decided to move him to center field just to see how much ground he could cover out there coming out of the lost pandemic year. And he's been elite there. I mean, he was making highlight after highlight after highlight for AA Portland at the tail end of last season. You go back to the MLB or MLB pipeline accounts. We have a lot of Rafaela defensive highlights, and it's sliding catches into the gaps. It's robbing home runs over the wall in center field. It's plays at shortstop. I mean, hard charging moves coming in, showing the speed the same way, going back onto the grass and making Willie Mays style catches. It's been really fun to see Rafaela push the envelope with his glove. So I had some of those highlights handy and I showed them to him and he walked me through what he was thinking. So that story is on MLB.com right now or RedSox.com, wherever you may find it. Ceddanne Rafaela breaking down his own highlights, what he was thinking, what he was trying to do, what his favorite types of plays are. I won't spoil anything, but go check out that story. And we laid over the audio with the visual. So there you can see him making the play and hear him describing it at the same time. That was really, really fun. I encourage you to go check that out. I've talked enough about spring training. Let's bring in our next guest here. Wanted to bring her on to the show. Somebody who's been in minor league baseball for a little bit, Emily Messina, who had been working for the Reading Fightin' Phils as their broadcaster the last 3 years. She actually got hired in April 2020, didn't get that season in, but then was behind the mic in 2021 and 2022. She's joining the Scranton Wilkes-Barre RailRiders this upcoming season alongside Adam Marco. They will be working as a pair in the booth. So we wanted to bring on Emily, chat about this new role, what she's most excited about in joining the RailRiders, and also considering that this, we're talking to you a few days after International Women's Day, just what her experience has been like and the community of women broadcasters in this game and how that's grown over the last few years. So here's me talking to Emily Messina. Well, we're very happy this week on the Show Before the Show podcast to be joined by the newest Scranton Wilkes-Barre RailRiders broadcaster, Emily Messina. Emily, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to reach out because this week it was announced that you will be joining Adam Marco over there with the RailRiders. You come from Reading. You've been with Reading for 3 seasons before this. But, as we get going here, as we get closer to the season, I mean, we're already in March. AAA baseball is being played this year. What are your expectations for this new role and how psyched are you to join Scranton?
I'm really excited to join a team as incredible as Scranton and a broadcaster as great as Adam. My biggest goal for this year is to learn. I really just want to grow as a broadcaster. I want to stay focused. And I think under Adam, who was broadcaster of the year, the minor league broadcaster of the year last season, will be a great opportunity for me. And I'll still get to travel to a good number of the away series. So I'll get the innings that I'm looking for to practice. And I'm really excited to be part of the Yankees minor league organization.
Yeah, and take us through how this kind of came about. I mean, like we said, you were with Reading for a while. This is a jump from AA to AAA. But, going into this season, were you looking for a new challenge? What was it about Scranton that drew you there?
Yeah, I was definitely looking to move up. I mean, I think everyone is in the end. And so coming from an organization as well known as Reading, I kind of wanted to stay on that level. And Scranton is right up there. They have fantastic attendance. They have fantastic promotions. And as always, the Yankees have a good minor league system. So I think, it's the perfect all-encompassing job for me. And I really, just like I said, wanted the opportunity to learn under somebody. So I really wanted to kind of transition into maybe a number 2 role where I could really focus on my craft and get some feedback throughout the course of the season and get some constructive criticism. So I think this is a really good opportunity for me to take my broadcasting to the next level.
Yeah. And speaking of how far your broadcasting has come, how do you feel like you have grown in the last, 2 years that we've actually had minor league baseball? You were originally hired to be the broadcaster for Reading in April 2020, which is unfortunate timing on that, but you got 2 full seasons under your belt there in the Eastern League. How have you grown since you started with the Fightin' Phils?
Oh my gosh, incredibly much. If I listen back to the beginning of my broadcast and then to where I am now, I'm so pleased with how it's been coming, but it's a long road to get there. I'll be the first to say, started out a little raw, and I really have felt comfortable by the end of last season. I started to feel really comfortable with my craft, and not only just being on the air, but all the other stuff that come with being a broadcaster off the air, your relationships with the players and with the coaching staff. And I was really blessed to have Sean Williams as my manager and a fantastic coaching staff that included me. So I feel like I was able to get a lot of knowledge out of them about the way that the system works and about the organization. So I think it was a real good experience for me there and a huge opportunity to just really learn about the game from the inside.
Yeah. And how do you feel like broadcasting has changed in the minor leagues just the last few years with the pitch clock? I mean, I think that's a huge thing. A lot of major league broadcasters are now getting used to, you have to get your stories out quick, right? Like you can't just be there spinning yarns for 20 minutes because that might be the length of a half inning. How do you feel like that's affected the way you call games?
Well, it's nice that I've had some experience with the pitch clock, so I know kind of how to adjust my style. It's really just a lot about word choice and shortening down, the stories we're telling, which I actually think on the broadcasting end is a really good tool to have. I think, being able to turn kind of a soliloquy into a little short bit is kind of what people are looking for anyways, right? People are looking for those little viral hits, those little short, pops of information. And I think that the pitch clock has helped us kind of take down these ginormous stories and turn them into fun little tidbits of information. So I've gotten some good practice. And you know what? Time and again, there's a longer inning that comes with a lot of offense or a couple of pitching changes where you're still able to tell those more epic sagas about a player's history. So I think it's a good mix now, and it keeps the flow up really well.
Yeah, I think some of my editors wish I could have a pitch timer on some of my stories to get them out quicker. I like what you're saying about that. And talking about storytelling, I mean, jumping from AA to AAA, just the players are different. You're going to get some 27, 28-year-olds who believe they should be major leaguers compared to AA guys who are trying to reach that level. How do you anticipate that changing and just the stories you are able to tell at the minors' highest level?
Yeah, I definitely think that it'll be more encompassing of their whole life, as opposed to just, focusing on their baseball career, because by the time that you get to older age, and even we saw it in AA a lot of these players are married with children. They have, lives going on outside of the game at this point. And so I think that always makes an interesting transition for them, and an interesting story about their journey is that they're more than just, these numbers on the field. And for me, anybody can Google, what somebody's ERA or how many home runs they have, but my job and what I love about my job is that I'm able to share, the backstory of somebody, what they've got going on in their life. And I think that makes the non-baseball person more interested in the game.
Yeah, and just doing a little bit of research, when you started at Reading, I came across a story in a Reading newspaper saying how your parents are Yankees fans. Mm-hmm. What was their reaction when they found out you were getting this job? And kind of expanding that out, I mean, what comes with the expectations of the Yankee system? Phillies are great, obviously, but the Yankees are the golden standard across baseball. I mean, what do you anticipate about making that jump?
Yeah, my family was really excited. They're excited for any team that I work for. I mean, I've been blessed to somehow work for like my hometown team and my parents' hometown team, which is crazy to me. Like, of all the places that you could end up, I ended up with both of them. But I think for me, the Phillies, I had an awesome time being there because it's right in the middle of a huge growth period and transition period for them. So they really had the come up of the year last year with making the World Series. And so that was awesome to witness some of the guys that I had seen play make it all the way to the big leagues and make it impact in the big leagues. And so that's what I'm looking forward to here with the Yankees, is that they're always going to be contenders in the pile. And so seeing some guys, especially ones that I saw in Somerset last year up here in Scranton, and then seeing them go and make an impact in the majors is always a really cool part of the gig. And I think that you're right. The Yankees have a standard, and I'm excited to be a part of that professional standard.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how much Anthony Volpe research have you had to already do, or how much are you going to just be pulling from all those at-bats you saw last year with the Patriots?
Yeah, I was so lucky to have him, to see him and witness him in Somerset last year. And obviously he had a great time, and they ended up winning the championship there with all the work that he had put in earlier in the season. So if he's with Scranton, I'm sure he'll make a big impact. And if he starts in the big leagues, I'll be happy to watch him there.
Yeah, I think we're in that kind of mid-period now, right? Where it seems like either road is plausible, given that what he showed out spring training. Excited to see what he can do the rest of the way down there in Tampa. You mentioned some of the exciting guys you got to see in Philly last year, or in Reading, making their way toward Philly. They had a three-headed monster in terms of pitching prospects between Andrew Painter, who came up late in the year, Griff McGarry was there for a little bit while longer, Mick Abel was there for a little bit while longer. What stood out from seeing those guys reach that level? Because a lot of times when guys get to AA, they say they can feel the majors being close. All three of those guys have massive ceilings. What did you see out of them?
I think it was an important jump for all three of them. Griff came earlier in July, and then Mick and Andrew were later in August. And I think by the time they got there, everybody was ready to rock. They weren't nervous coming up. They knew that they fit in with this crew and they had what it took. And you could really see that confidence translate onto the mound. But I think what's great about the three of those guys is that they're very confident in their stuff. They know that they've got it, but they're not pompous. They're not overtly aggressive about any of that. And I think that's the skills that you need to make it as a big leaguer, is to believe in yourself. And those three of them do. And they have, such aggression on the mound. Attack, I think is like really the big things with them, that they're going to go after you. They're going to throw that heater and they're going to see what you can do with it. And if they need to make adjustments off speed the second or third times around, that they will. And so they've got, for being young guys, they've got a lot of really good experience. A lot of them have played in, those big Team USA games, and Griff's got a little bit more of that, pressure experience under his belt, but they can all handle themselves really well and really professionally for younger guys. If you have had the opportunity to talk to them in interviews, they are fantastic to talk about. I mean, especially for some of these guys that are 19 and 20, they handle themselves really well. And so I think that mental side of handling the game is something that they have down. And that, I think, is a big factor in being successful.
Yeah. And what do you remember most about Painter, especially because, at MLB Pipeline, we just made him the number one pitching prospect. For him to reach AA, you talked about all those guys didn't look as young as they really were, as it says on their player page, but him for especially being 19 years old, getting up there when he did. What do you remember from that first start of seeing him?
Well, I remember that he went 6 shutout innings and like 80 something pitches, which is pretty impressive. But then I remember that after the game, I had the opportunity to talk to him and I said, do you feel 19 out there? Meanwhile, he's like 6'7", like towering over me. And he said, like, no, I've played with these guys all the time. I know, what they're about. I know what the standard is here. And so I feel like I can fit right in, even though I'm younger. I have the stuff that's going to play here, and I'm ready to showcase what I've got. So he has the right mentality there. And he'll come up and he'll just attack the strike zone, and he's not afraid. And that really shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And going through your Twitter account, just scrolling back through a little bit, there's a lot of support for people who are friends of this show. Emma Tiedemann in Portland, and Jill Gearin, who I knew called AFL games just as you did in the past. And you mentioned UMass women's basketball. You called some games this year for them. There was a time where there was an all-women crew on that. We're talking here a day after, International Women's Day. Like, just speak to your role now as being a woman broadcaster at the AAA level, one stop away. Again, that Reading story, I saw you mentioned Susan Waldman as well, being an inspiration in the Yankee system as well. But just as you were growing up, thinking like this could come someday, how far do you feel like broadcasting has come in terms of giving women these roles and women earning these roles behind the mic?
Well, I'm so blessed to be able to have a couple women in minor league baseball and then sports outside of that. Emma, Jill, and our friend Maura Sheridan. All of them have been such a great support system for me, and being able to just talk to them about shared experiences and look at them as role models for me has been an important part of me getting there, as well as my support system from home, my family and my friends. This is sort of a outlandish career choice maybe to pick as a woman in broadcasting, but they've always been nothing but supportive of me, and I'm so thankful for that. And I've seen it outside of the sport in UMass with basketball. I've called a bunch of high profile swim meets this year, which has been fun. So the support that the men have given me from outside as well has been really influential in me getting to this point. And then, Susan Waldman, she's been the role model since I started. She's the reason that I got into this career. And I'm really lucky to have some contact with her, especially coming into the Yankee system.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk to her, I mean, what questions are you asking somebody who's been in this business as long as she had, broken barriers, broken her way into clubhouses like she has? I mean, what kind of questions do you ask somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about all the great parts of being able to, how do you handle interviews and how do you, work on your craft as a broadcaster and what does this player showcasing? And last year, I know we had a really nice time when I saw a major league rehabber from Somerset. And so I texted her about what's going on with this guy. And she was great with information. And then we also talk about, how to handle some of the more difficult stuff, how to handle some of the hate and the feedback that you get as being a woman. And she is such a true professional at handling everything that's come her way. And so I just really look up to the way that she handles herself. And that's something that I'm working on.
Yeah. And if there are any, women broadcasters listening to this right now, I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, it's a really unfortunate part of this right now. And you guys all have the toughest skin in the business from where I sit, but like, how do you go through that and still come through the other side as well as you guys always have?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple that I've worked with, Alexis Yoder and Kara Guno, they're trying to get into minor league baseball. And for me, I just try the best to stay in my own lane and really just focus on my craft and what I'm doing. And, if anyone has any serious criticism, I will definitely listen to that because, I want the fans to enjoy me. And so I want some feedback from them. But if they have anything ridiculous to say, I always just remember that I have the job and they don't. So, that's enough.
That is a good one. I really like that one. And for people who are in Scranton, who are getting to know you, coming up in a few weeks here as games get going, how would you describe your style? I mean, everybody's got a different way of calling a baseball game. There's no one true way to do it. That's the beauty of this sport and the beauty of that job. How would you describe what you do behind the mic?
I would say my style is really casual. I try to be really relaxed on the broadcast. I try to make it, show that I'm having a lot of fun when I'm doing it because I really am. And so I'll really try to get to know the players and the fan base and see what everyone is kind of looking for information wise. That was a big thing for me in Reading, was just kind of being in tune with what the fans were looking for and what kind of information they enjoyed hearing. So I'll try my best to do the same in Scranton, and I'm excited to meet a new fan base and a new team. And, I've had some really good experiences working with players and staff. So I, hope to continue that here. And I'm really excited to work with Adam too, because I think, his style is so professional and so fun to listen to. And I'll work on incorporating some of that.
Yeah, very cool. And I can hear Tyler Mon, who is calling WBC games right now and can't join us for this interview, but I can hear him yelling across from Taiwan that I have to ask this question. You have experience in the Australian Baseball League. We're coming off a night where Australia just upset Korea in the World Baseball Classic. A lot of people probably looking up right now of like, what is Australian baseball? So based off your time with the Melbourne Aces, what did you learn about Australian baseball and what the sport is down there?
Australian baseball is so much fun. I mean, Robin Glendenning's homer last night, that was really elite to watch. And I think, that's the Australian Baseball League is their highest that you can get to. So that's like playing professional for them. And so they've got serious talent. And a lot of those people have made it over into high minor leagues, Glendenning, Curtis Mead, and then some of them, have just made it high profile in Australia. And so I think they view themselves as the underdog. They're out there just to have a good time, but also to play some really good baseball. And that's showing right now. They're succeeding. My favorite thing about Australian baseball is, so in America, there's seeds in the dugout, there's gum in the dugout, maybe, Cliff Bars. In Australia, there's sour gummy worms and candy to get your energy up. And I don't know if that was just in Melbourne where I was, or if that's making it all the way to the World Baseball Classic. So that's something I'll have to find out.
Yeah, we can incorporate that in press boxes too. Just like we could use our energy up too, as writers and broadcasters.
There should be a bowl of candy at your disposal.
Yeah, I'm just saying we could also incorporate that from Australia. Well, Emily Messina, one of the newest voices to the Scranton Wilkes-Barre RailRiders for the 2023 season. Thanks so much for joining us. Congrats again on the new role, and we're really looking forward to what you and Adam can do together over there in Scranton.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One was once second rate for 3 straight seasons. The others never even managed that, nor anything else. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A, the Meridian Peps. B, the Phippsburg Pips. C, the Palmdale Paps. You've got some real get up and go if you picked A, the Meridian Peps, who fizzled up in the Southeastern League of 1946, 1947, and 1948. Based in the seat of Mississippi's Lauderdale County, Meridian having been the state's biggest city for much of the previous 50 years, the Peps picked up where the Southeastern League's Meridian Eagles left off when the circuit shut down for the war following the summer of '42. Unfortunately, where the Eagles left off was last place. According to some sources, the Peps got their name in part because of the name of their manager, Fred Papa Williams, which would allow the team to be referred to as Papa's Peps. But the Peps moniker appeared in local papers as early as February of '47, including in stories introducing Walt Tosher, who was the Peps manager before Williams, for nearly their first 100 games of existence. Other explanations, such as that the Peps got their name from Meridian's status as a caffeinated soft drink industry hotspot, pop closer to the truth. A Pepsi bottling plant did enter boom times there in the mid-'40s, and the Meridian Coca-Cola Bottling Company was founded way back in 1902. However the name bubbled up, the Peps' performance was flat. In that wonderful new piece of the summer of 1946, the Meridian Club insisted upon waging war on the concept of good baseball. With a working agreement with the Brooklyn Dodgers, they dodged victory at every opportunity. Papers from other cities in the league described the team as the hapless Peps, Pepless, and the 7th place Peps. Well, by year's end, they were the 8th place Peps. The offense was so feckless that a rookie named Ray Dunn got 200 plate appearances for Meridian despite batting .198, and the pitching was no Sunday picnic either. 3 different hurlers appeared in more than 30 games and posted ERAs north of 440. Not a single Pep made the All-Star team. Meridian drew a line to a new working agreement with the Cleveland organization for 1947 and 48, but everywhere the Peps went, there they were. In '47, despite solid pitching from one Wendell Davis, they wound up 10.5 games out of first place. And in '48, they were even more impressive in a way, 23.5 games out. The very next year, they were rechristened the Meridian Millers and started producing. Led by Jack Maupin and Harold Summers, they won 80 games to finish second. And that's how the Peps plopped out. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams was tough to tackle in the minors of yesteryear? A, the Marfa Cowboys. B, the Lexington Patriots. C, the Salinas Packers. Want to know the answer? Go on. Or tune into the next Ghosts of the Minors. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is watching the grapefruit action, and I've got to peel him away.
Our thanks again to Josh Jackson for another Ghosts of the Minors. If you haven't done this yet, Ghosts of the Minors is now also in written form on MILB.com. Go check that out. Some of those are ones that we've had on the podcast before, but Josh dives a little bit deeper into it. It's also there for your reading leisure, if that's how you prefer to see it. You know, normally we don't put out these scripts, but this is a great way of diving into some of our favorite Ghosts of the Minors of the past. And Josh does a great job of this week in and week out, of course, but now we're expanding the Ghosts Empire a little bit. So go check out those stories on MILB.com as well. Again, our thanks to our guests this week, James Bailey and Emily Messina. Really glad we could get both of them on the show for a 2-interview week this week. It's been a really Sam-centric show this week, and I apologize for that. Again, Tyler is out in Taiwan calling the World Baseball Classic, making all of us proud. Ben is taking some much-deserved time off at the tail end of this week, gearing up for the 2023 season that is just around the corner, 3 weeks away from when you guys are hearing this. Opening day in AAA is on March 31st. Still taking me some getting used to thinking about AAA baseball in March, but that just means we get it even sooner. We'll be back next week with more interviews, more discussions. Hopefully all of us can get together next week to start to preview the season to come. I mean, it really is right around the corner. We'll talk a little bit more about who's standing out in spring training and who could win some jobs and who is looking like they're going to the minors and where they're going. We have lots to discuss before that opening day arrives. I've been Sam Dykstra. On behalf of Tyler Mon, Benjamin Hill, and Josh Jackson, thanks so much for joining us this week on the Show Before the Show, and we will catch you next week.